Runescape 3 was released on the 22nd of July in 2013. Since then, many updates have changed the game, and in this video we're going to do a recap of the most important updates since its release. So when you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Not long after the release of Runescape 3, they released their 26th skill called Divination. Divination is a skill that consists of gathering and manufacturing, and it added divine skilling locations, portents, and much more. 290 ranged power armor called Tyrannic was added to the game in October, and it now looks like this. A new boss, basically being Barrows 2.0, called Barrows Rise of the Six, was added to the game for high level players to defeat. Rise of the Six dropped Malevolent Energy used to create the tier 90 power armor set called Malevolent Armor. In 2013 they also added a couple of notable quests like the Death of Chivalry, and they added the Daemonheim task set. – 2014 starts off strong with updates to ports, the Slayer helmet, and the Slayer skill, adding a new way to train Slayer called Social Slayer, being a co-op mode. They turned the giant mole from this into that, and they added a new spider boss called Araxor, adding new 290 weapons for ranged, magic, and melee. 4 expert skill capes were added for the skill categories, being artisans, combatants, gatherers, and support capes. You could obtain these capes while combining all of the shards you get in a set category of skills after level 99. Master skill capes were added for players getting the virtual level of 120, being 104 million experience in a skill. And one of the biggest updates of 2014 in 2 different batches, the Elven City adding a new Slayer Master, skilling locations, a new Grand Exchange, and much more. Legacy Combat Mode was released for players not interested in EOC, bank presets were added, and many important quests like Fate of the Gods. And not to forget, Iron Man Mode was released in 2014 as well. The first update of 2015 were boss pets, allowing you to showcase your total kill count for each boss once obtained. The aquarium was added to the player-owned house. Raids were released, adding 2 10-man bosses being Beastmaster Durzag and Yakamaru. The Tusker World event happened, adding new abilities to the game. Adamant and Rune Dragons were added. A new way of training fishing was added to Profitnas, being waterfall fishing. New prayers and spells were added with the Light Within quest. New Slayer creatures were added like Wyverns and Ripper Demons. And Falador was graphically overhauled. In 2016, the first elite skill of RuneScape was added, being Invention, requiring level 80 smithing, crafting, and divination to begin with. This skill added perks that could be used in both skilling and combat. God Wars Dungeon 2 was released, adding 4 mid-level bosses, and later the new hardest solo boss in RuneScape, being Telos. Port Sarim and the Dagon Kings got a beauty treatment. The Ark released, adding new high-level skilling locations and a player-owned island, and the Wilderness finally got a task set. Skilling pets were added for all non-combat skills, and many important quests were added like the River of Blood, Nomad's Elegy, and the Gower's quest. At the start of 2017, a new group boss was added called Nex, Angel of Death, dropping tier 92 magic weapons and tier 99 prayers. Skill capes got their own skill cape perks, the luck rework happened, Gemstone Dragons were added to Karamja, Shattered Worlds was released, being a combat minigame much like Diablo 3 Rifts. The Manifold City expansion arrived, adding new mid-level skilling locations and a new Slayer dungeon for creatures up to level 120 Slayer. Later this year, the Magister boss, being a Slayer boss requiring level 115 Slayer, would be added to this dungeon. Boss drop logs were released, giving you a title after completing the full drop log. Invention changes happened, and Batch 2 was released for the skill, adding machines and devices like the Divine-O-Matic. The Lost Grove Slayer area was released, adding new Slayer creatures for higher level Slayer players. Each skill would finally have a skilling pet, as combat pets were released. Fletching, dual-wield weapons, and some other things were changed to be available to free-to-play, and many other skilling changes for the better. In 2018, auras would be removed from the bank and would finally get their own interface, making it much easier to access, extend, and favorite auras. The clue scroll system got a rework which added a log and a new tier of clue, being master clues. The The Solak boss was released, being the hardest group boss in RuneScape 3. I would refer to 2018 as the year of skilling, as they added a bunch of new skilling methods and training areas, the first of which being the Deep Sea Fishing Hub, accessible to the player after level 68 fishing. They then added the Hall of Memories, changing Divination training forever after level 70. Safecracking was released, being a very laid back and AFK way of training thieving after level 62, and Overgrown Idols were added for woodcutting. And perhaps the best skilling update of 2018, the player-owned farm, changing the way you can train farming forever, adding a completely new way of training farming opposed to planting seeds and trees. Rune Pass happened, which we won't actually talk about. Elite Dungeon 1 and 2 were released, a completely new way of doing PvM in RuneScape 3, which were dungeons filled with trash mobs and 3 bosses each. Clans received some quality of life, changing the way clan avatars worked. Master Skill Capes got their own perks as well. And finally, the Quest Point shop was added, giving players rewards for the amount of quest points they had in total. In 2019, the mining and smithing skill got a rework, but have you actually heard about it? This not only changed mining and smithing for the better, but also updated a lot of the drop tables bosses and slayer creatures had. The third elite dungeon was added, being an aquatic themed dungeon with the hardest final boss of any other elite dungeon. Incense sticks were added and fire making got some quality of life. Later down the line, smithing also got some quality of life, making it much more AFK because previously it wasn't after the rework. The weapon diversity beta was actually announced and started in this year, proposing to change the way weapons and spells were seen in RuneScape, giving each a passive effect or buff. Comcape requirements were changed, and it no longer required the Reaper crew being a kill of every single boss in the game, because that's what a completionist is, someone who hasn't killed every single boss in the game. Jagex logic, I guess. The Land Out of Time update, being Anachronia Island, was added, and this update included a complete overhaul to the Hunter skill by nerfing experience rates into the ground and adding a unique way of training it called Big Game Hunter. Admittedly a very fun way and a change compared to regular Hunter previously. Anachronia also added a new Slayer Master, who I like to refer to as IKEA Girl in my Slayer guides, and a bunch of new dinosaur and plant themed Slayer creatures. It also added a completely new massive agility course and much more. This year, the Slayer collection log was released, being similar to the boss drop logs by giving your account a unique title after obtaining every drop in the log. The most anticipated feature of the bank rework happened, being bank placeholders and an overhaul of the banking system in RuneScape. As both farming and herbal were extended to level 120, much like Dungeoneering, Slayer and Invention. The player-owned farm got an expansion, being the Ranch Out of Time, featuring dinosaur-related creatures. The movement system was updated to make it more smooth and responsive, and RuneScape 3 Mobile was fully released to the public for Android users. And yet people complained that there was absolutely no content this year. In 2020, War's Retreat, also known as the PvM Hub, was released, changing PvM for the better by giving low to high level players access to bossing portals without being maxed. Other notable features are adrenaline crystals to get 100% adrenaline quickly, faster bonfire boost, and other things in the reward shop like life refreshes and aura resets. They released a small but community quest called Once Upon a Slime, and not long after that, at the end of March, they released a new skill called Archaeology, which was an absolutely massive update. The Archaeology skill involves excavating and restoring artifacts in 5 different dig sites, which all are different and have little mini quests known as mysteries within. By training the skill, you can get access to powerful passive effects in the form of relics, which you offer to your monolith. So far, 2020 has had a lot of patches and quality of life updates like object highlighting and Solak scaling. With that being said, we have come to the end of this recap video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and maybe even consider subscribing. But before I end the video, I want to shout out a product that everyone should be using: ExpressVPN. This software predicts your identity when browsing the web using public Wi-Fi, making it harder for hackers to do harm. You no longer need to be ashamed of Googling how to make money in RuneScape, nor do you need to when Googling scrumptious things about IKEA Girl. I personally use ExpressVPN to stream movies or to watch documentaries on YouTube that for whatever reason are blocked in my country. I've also used it to AFK skills while I was going for max at my own school because, of course, RuneScape was blocked. And who likes XP wasting when going for max anyways, am I right? If you want to help me afford my absurd consumption of tea while getting a useful bit of software in return, you can go to expressvpn.com/protox to get a full 3 months for free on your 12-month plan. With that being said, catch you guys in the next one. Peace.